Hello everyone. My name is Kamal Manocha. I represent PMS AIF World. So we have a very interesting and intuitive webinar planned today on Friday evening with a fund manager who is very well known, needs no introduction really, but I will still, give a very described. I will describe the background as well as, the area of passion which this fund manager brings. He's a very good friend. Mr. Nalin Moniz, is amongst us today, who currently is managing in one of India's very well-known and very large alternative equity fund. If I start about his background, he is a India born, and he went to a University of Pennsylvania on scholarship, and did his graduation in computer science, and then finance, and then statistics. After that, he started his career, with Goldman Sachs, and there, he worked there for 3 years till 2008. In 2008, all of us know that we were hit with global financial crisis, and that is what kind of gave him opportunity in that challenge to actually pursue his dream of starting a professional entrepreneur career. And that is where he came back to India and started India's first alternative investment fund in 2009. When there was no background of any regulations in India with regards to AIFs. He was the first one to actually dream and pursue his dream, and he worked with SEBI and Government of India to actually make that happen. By 2014, in 5 years, India had AIF guidelines, and his fund by name Forefront Capital was one of the first funds which got the first license in the category 3 of AIFs. And by the time 2014 came, in 5 years, fund had actually grown because of its success to $1 billion in assets. So because of the persistent performance, the passion behind that performance, and a very good team, which actually stayed with him for a very long period of time, he was able to build that. And because of that, the fund actually got bought over with Edelweiss. Edelweiss acquired that fund in 2014, and till date, that fund and that team of that fund is being part of Edelweiss, and is today known as Edelweiss Multi Assets Fund. So welcome to you, Nalin, to our platform. We are a modern day wealth management firm, and we actually, have placed our business model on the, I would say, identification of right and best products for our clients. This is one of the very foremost aspects that we actually, do very well. Secondly, identification of products which are good and right for clients is one important aspect. But more than that, understanding and deep diving those products and articulating those products for our clients is another very, very important aspect that we do. Both these aspects together, when we kind of present in front of our clients, they are actually able to make a confident investment decision, and that is what actually starts their journey towards wealth creation. And obviously, because of that, they involve themselves in that investment, and also our educative approach helps them sail through and learn through that journey, and that is what kind of builds their interest. And this model has actually given us immense success in a very short period of time, and that is where we keep doing such educative webinars. And in that stride, we are really delighted to have you today. So, to everyone who has joined, a formal welcome to all of you. We will be first doing a detailed presentation, which is kind of a classroom presentation on the alternate investment funds, because this is a very deep area. And as I said, in my detailed description about Nalin, that he has actually, done the deep diving of this subject at length. So he will be taking us through detailed presentation, which is a very interesting presentation. I have gone through this presentation in the past, and I can tell you very confidently, it is a very insightful presentation. So for first 30 minutes, Nalin to and everyone in the audience will go through this presentation, and then we'll be going through some questions and answers. In the meanwhile, while you will be presenting, I'll be noting down questions, on the chat. I also have a lot of questions which have, which are with me, and we'll cover all that after 30 minutes. Over to you, Nalin.
Thanks, Kamal. Thank you for that very warm introduction, and a very good evening to all our participants at PMS AIF World. Just give me a second as I start my presentation. Kamal, is the presentation visible?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So today I'm here to talk to you about the very exciting and fast-growing area of long-short investing. And this has gotten really popular in the last, at least in the last 2-3 years, for a couple of reasons. One is that risk, volatility, and uncertainty with the pandemic are the operating mantra. And you see a big dispersion between the strongest companies and the weakest companies in every single sector. So this is a great canvas for long short investing. And clients today also want to participate in equities, but they're worried about valuations, they're worried about a potential third wave, and what may happen if there is a repeat of March 2020. So people are looking for equity returns, but with a smoother ride. And that's where long short fits in. My aim today is not to talk about products, but to educate you about this asset class and what it can do for you in your wealth creation journey. So let me start from the very beginning as to what a long short fund does. And there are 4 main ingredients at a very, very high level. The fund buys stocks that will do well. That's the long part. It shorts stocks that will do badly. That's the negative part. It does some element of arbitrage or non-market linked opportunities that give you steady returns. And then there is a dynamic asset allocation that changes the mix of these 3 components. And whether you look at our fund or any of our competitors' fund, it can be broken down into these 4 components. Just a quick reminder as I go along, please keep your questions coming in to Kamal and team. As I speak, we'll be having an engaging session at the very end. So now let's look at some data about the Indian stock market and why it is very, very well suited for this investment approach. So the first thing is that over the last 10 years, and actually even going back to the beginning of the Nifty and the Sensex, there has been a huge dispersion between winners and losers every single year. What we've shown you in this graph is that for the BSE 200, what were the average returns of the top 50 stocks? Those are in green, and the bottom 50 stocks, which are in red. And obviously winners and losers may keep rotating, but I was surprised when I saw this data that the gap between the top 50 and the bottom 50 is almost 45% per year. This is a staggering amount and far in excess of what you may experience in international markets. We know that prices are fairly volatile, but here is an interesting study that shows you that fundamentals are not. Fundamentals are fairly stable. So in this exercise, we looked at the last 5 years. Again, the BSE 200 was our universe, and broke it up into 4 quartiles in terms of ROE. So the Q1 are the companies with the highest ROE, Q2 is the next 50, Q3 is the third 50, and Q4 is the fourth 50. And then we looked at the same company's performance in the subsequent years and broke them up by quartiles. So what you see on the top left-hand side is that 68% of companies did not move quartiles year on year. That means that a good company continues to remain a good company a bad company continues to remain a bad company. And as long as you're able to identify the wheat from the chaff, this is a great framework for not only finding good longs, but also good shorts. I'm now going to come to the investor case for long short funds and why it could be a great addition to your portfolio. So the first is that even though people use this term very loosely, long short funds come in two flavors. There are funds that are similar to an arbitrage fund or a debt mutual fund, what I've written as debt risk long short funds on the top left hand side of the quadrant. And then there are equity risk long short funds, which attempt to give you more equity like returns, but with much lower drawdowns, with much lower risk. And this segregation, I think, is very important because it helps you to identify the right solution for the right client need. One of the things that we have also seen is that equity investors have struggled with this roller coaster ride that markets give you. And here we've looked at rolling 3-year and rolling 5-year returns, which are reasonable measures of long-term performance. Depending on the time of entry or exit, a client's 3-year return could be as high as almost 60% or as low as almost 16% negative on a compounded basis. Likewise, there is a huge spread between 5 years, 5-year returns ranging from as low as 5% per year negative to 45% per year positive. And with this kind of variation, there is a very strong case for funds that have much more consistency in terms of performance. One of the popular options today in India is mutual funds. And with the whole host of SEBI regulations around categorization, classifications of large, mid, and small cap stocks, total return benchmarks, etc., AMFI data shows you that large cap and even multi-cap funds, for that measure, are struggling to outperform. And that's why you've also seen the rise of index funds and ETFs in the mutual fund arena. So all of this is pushing clients to adopt long short funds as their preferred vehicle for equity investing. I'm now going to give you an industry overview of category 3 AIFs. As Kamal said, I started the very first AIF in 2012, and I have been, surprised by how broad-based and how quick the growth in the industry has been. Here's some very interesting data. So among all the categories of AIFs, category 3 are some of the fastest growing at the moment. Today, there is about 57,000 crores of AUM, and there are about 144 players in the market. This compares to only about 45 mutual funds, and I've not even included private funds or venture capital funds that form category 1 and category 2. Each of these funds is meaningful. The average fund size is almost 400 crores, and it's grown secularly regardless of markets, both in terms of AUM and in terms of new entrants. So nevertheless, this is a very, very exciting space. One of the things that I'd like to highlight is that with 145 players in this category, it becomes very important for an advisor to help separate the wheat from the chaff. The value of good advice and good product selection has never been more important. Here are some of the players who are prominent in this space. The three big market leaders are Avendus, us at Edelweiss, and ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund. But then there are also a whole host of rising stars like ITI, Tata, and DSP, and then a number of other new interesting names that are trying to establish their foothold in the market. So this is a great mix of boutiques, standalone AMCs, as well as larger mutual fund houses. So stay tuned. This is a very, very exciting space. I'm now going to go and explain how a long short fund is run. I'm going to take you behind the scenes and show you how a fund manager manages these portfolios. But just a reminder before I go on to keep your questions coming for Kamal and for me, which we will take very shortly. So the first thing is that capital allocation and how much cash, where cash is used in the fund, is not the same as the fund's exposure. That's because there is the use of derivatives or F&O, as it's called. For example, to take 100 rupees of Reliance Industries exposure, you only need around 20 to 25 rupees of margin money. So the capital allocation would be 25 rupees. The exposure would be 100. And each of these two categories of funds, whether it's debt risk or equity risk, have a different mix of capital allocation. You'll see that the debt risk funds are predominantly investing in fixed income. The equity risk funds are predominantly investing in equities. The two categories also have different ranges in terms of gross exposure and in terms of net exposure. The gross exposure is capped by SEBI regulations at 200%. The debt risk funds have a target return of about 7 to 9% post-tax, post-fees, whereas the equity risk funds have about 12 to 15% post-tax, post-fees. And typically the debt risk funds attract more treasuries and people looking to park money for the short term, whereas an equity risk fund typically attracts more family offices and HNI investors, where people are investing for a 2 to 3 year horizon. Here is another example to graphically explain this difference between exposure and capital allocation. Let me start with the graph on the top left-hand side, which is a debt mutual fund. When you invest in a debt mutual fund, 100 rupees invested gets invested in fixed deposits, bonds, paper, bond market papers, etc. And of course, there are no derivatives, so gross and net exposure is 0. In contrast, a long-short debt risk fund will have about 85% of its money in the same debt papers. You see that in pink, but it will also have 5 rupees invested in margin FDs. And those 5 rupees are used to take both long and short positions. They tend to be a lot more muted because investors tend to be conservative here. The gross exposure is 40 and the net exposure is 10. The same example can also be seen on the equity side. A traditional equity mutual fund, which many of you are familiar with, when you invest 100 rupees in it, will have 95 rupees invested in stocks and maybe 5 rupees in cash. And I can see that on the top right-hand side graph. A long-short equity risk fund will use the same kind of framework, except that 100 rupees here will go 70 rupees in stocks, 20 rupees in margin FDs, and 10 rupees in free cash. The 20 rupees in margin gets used to take both long and short positions. And again, unlike the debt risk fund, the position sizes are slightly larger because clients have a more aggressive return target and a longer time horizon. One of the very important things that I wanted to also touch upon is taxation of category 3 AIFs. And this is different from a mutual fund because in a mutual fund, the fund does not pay tax. The investor pays tax when he or she redeems. Taxation is a very important topic, and with a lot of HNI clients, it is important to address this upfront. In category 1 and 2 AIFs, which deal with the unlisted space, there is pass-through taxation. But in category 3, there is fund level taxation. The fund pays tax every single year that you are invested, and it is paid on the PAN card of the fund, not at the client level. At the end of the year, the investor just gets a simple tax letter that they can show their chartered accountant. This has two implications. One, it is the fund manager's responsibility to manage tax carefully so that you as an investor get the maximum post-tax, post-fee returns. But also, this is actually easier as an investor because you don't have to worry about a capital gains statement or any accounting issues at year end. This topic in itself is a subject for a webinar, so I'm not going to delve too much into it, but I only want to highlight that this is an important topic to touch upon. I'm now going to tell you how to evaluate these long-short funds because each fund that today exists in the market has its own style, has its own flavor, and its own flair. So the first thing is that there is a wide range of strategies. People employ different ideas on the long side, different ideas on the short side, different ideas for their arbitrage or non-directional portfolio, and different asset allocation strategies. Some people are bottom up, some people are top down, some people do sector selection, some people do stock selection, some people do fundamentals, some people do technicals, etc. And it really depends on the individual fund manager and fund house. The important thing is that today there are just a handful of large credible players, and it's also easy to have meetings with them so that you can understand their investment process in a little more detail. Risk management is also an important part of evaluation, and I'm not just talking about traditional risk metrics or liquidity risk, but also things like margining, because you're dealing with derivatives. If there is any fixed income in the portfolio, then credit and duration risk has to be understood. And then operational risk has to be kept in check with specific fund accounting software, good tax policies, and hygiene in terms of trade execution. So these are the more nuanced questions that somebody like Kamal and his team at PMS AIF World can also help you to diligence. I'm going to just now leave you with 10 key questions to ask when evaluating a long-short fund. Since this is a relatively newer arena, the fund manager and the AMC's background is very, very important. You as an investor have to evaluate whether the fund is a fixed income or an equity alternative so that it's matched with your needs and your time horizon. Be clear as to what kind of post-tax, post-fee returns to expect. Understand how the fund has been run in the past, what is the range of gross and net exposures. Ask tough questions on risk, And then also finally ask about reporting statements and what other information you can expect from the AMC. So with this checklist, you will really be able to identify which is the right fund for you. And lastly, I want to leave you with some mega trends for the future. This is a very exciting space. There are new strategies popping up all the time. Quant funds are becoming a lot more popular. There are funds that are run a 130-30 mandate. And some AMCs have also ventured into commodities and currencies to launch multi-asset long-short funds. The role of aggregators like PMS AIF World is important in spreading information, and that's why we're here today on the webinar. And remember that any client who's investing 1 crore will demand high transparency and a good client experience in terms of statements and onboarding. So that's also really important. And lastly, on the regulatory front, SEBI has been bringing a lot of the best practices from the mutual fund industry to AIFs, whether it is peer benchmarking, disclosure of commissions, even the direct plan. And one big ask for the industry is pass-through taxation versus fund level taxation. So with that, I'll just highlight again that this category of fund is a great solution for the current times. We're in an environment where strong companies are getting stronger, weak companies are getting weaker, and this is only accelerating as we come out of the pandemic. And there is tremendous activity in IPOs, buybacks, and other non-market linked opportunities. And as I said, the need of the hour today is equity returns, more steady wealth creation, but with a lot more consistency than a traditional PMS or a mutual fund. So that's all that I have, Kamal. Back to you and over to the audience.
Sure, Nalin. As I said, presentation has been really interesting and insightful. So the foremost question, that comes to my mind, and every time when I, think about investing in this fund and kind of, try to take it to any large client, we have been living in, mostly bullish times, and a case to invest into, any product which is equity linked is always kind of associated with India ultimately growing over next 5-7 years, and by adding additional trillions. Today we are a 3 trillion economy, right? The basic argument for investing into equities is that we'll be kind of 7 trillion economy, say in next 5 to 7 years, and this decade is going to be an opportunity for creating wealth, and that is what is pulling a lot of investors to equities. On one side, investors are kind of wanting to invest even in pre-IPO funds or pure long only equity funds because they have a long term horizon, and it is also very well understood by investors, and it has been kind of now explained many times by advisors that asset allocation plays the ultimate role, right? And one should be kind of starting one's allocation towards any instrument by first understanding one's asset allocation. So in that regards, how does investor kind of find a space for allocating money to a long short fund like yours, and what is the how does it kind of fit in terms of risk and return expectations? And as I will also wanted to cover within this question, that how does a long short fund actually promise to beat the benchmark?
Right. So Kamal, you've asked me 3-4 questions, but I'll take them one at a time. Half our investors that were present in 2014 when we launched Edelweiss Alternative Equity are still invested with us. And that's been now 7.5 years. And the reason that they've chosen to remain invested is that this category of funds navigates volatility very well. A really great example is that if you have 100 rupees and you lose 50 in 1 year, okay, then you need to double or deliver 100% in year 2 just to break even. And that's why Warren Buffett's rule number 1 is don't lose money. His rule number 2 is don't forget rule number 1. So believe me, Kamal, I am very optimistic on India. I am perhaps even more bullish on India than you are. But I also know that keeping people invested, allowing investors to sleep easy at night is a very important part of realizing that wealth creation journey. Also, I want to highlight that long short funds don't solve all problems in your portfolio. If you have a 1 month horizon for fixed income, then maybe a liquid fund or an overnight fund is the better solution, even at the cost of lower returns. And if you are really looking for big bagger returns, then please invest in a mid and small cap PMS or even some of these pre-IPO funds that you spoke about. This is not a solution for every need, but it certainly has a very important role to play in client portfolios.
Sure. So my subsequent question was that how does your long short fund that you manage strive to beat the benchmark? What is the strategy that you follow? And if you could share some numbers, since 2014, what have been your returns, and not only return numbers, if you could also cover the risk numbers as you mentioned. The one of the factors which base the argument in favor of long short funds is stable returns. So what have been beta and what have been volatility oriented numbers? If you could cover that as well.
Right. So Kamal, we do something very simple. We are long the best businesses run by the best promoters. Basically, your consistent compounders that are growing at 15 to 18%, and we are short the worst businesses in the worst sectors, all the broken businesses and junk. And that's the way we have managed the fund for the last 7.5 years. That has helped us to deliver 18.5% compounded net of fees versus about 13 for the Nifty. And the realized beta is 0.6. Max drawdowns are about 60% of the index. And in terms of upside and downside capture, we've been able to capture almost 100% of the upside on a monthly basis, but only about 40% of the downside. So these are some very, very powerful stats, and this is not a test. This is our live experience, having lived through demonetization, the China crisis, GST, the UPA elections, COVID, and so many other bullish and bearish events in the last 7.5 years.
Right. So to audience out here, I would also like to point out, what Nalin had covered in the presentation, that there are various types of long short funds, and the type that Nalin manages is basically a enhanced equity fund or a long biased long short fund, where there are long only positions as well as they are hedged with long short positions. And we will obviously talk about taxation of this category in the subsequent questions. But my question to you, Nalin, subsequent question to you is that, as you mentioned, that your fund has sailed through various market timings and various market conditions. What is the actually ideal condition which you think is right for your type of fund?
Kamal, honestly, I think that the market conditions that we're in today are some of the best that I've seen in my career for our style of investing. And that's because in every single sector, COVID has strengthened the strong players and weakened the weak players. So it has never been easier to pick winners and to pick losers.
So, I will reiterate my question. So, I agree with you that we are, in one of the best times. However, because yours is a long short fund, the foremost question that comes to any investor's mind is that maybe a time which is a time which is not very bullish, or time which is seeing a range bound market or an uncertain event, maybe will be kind of favoring your type of fund. So, would you like to kind of uh,
Yes, Kamal, I agree. Relative to other PMSs and AIFs and even mutual funds that exist, we tend to stand out very strongly in a bear market or in a range bound market. Let me give you one data point. In FY20, in the financial year ended March 31st, 2020, Nifty was down about 25% that year. Most mutual funds were down about in the early 20s. A lot of PMSs were down 35%. We were down only 2.8%. So we were close to flat in a very, very tough bear market. And that has helped us to really win a lot of the confidence of investors. And as I said, Kamal, a fund or a fund category like this is not going to solve all problems in your portfolio. But it does merit a good part of your asset allocation.
right? So now, we come to the question on the taxation, which is, one part which ultimately I think there is a lot of confusion around this area with regards to category, three funds, because the taxation happens at the fund level. Investors, are really wanting to know what are the various, I would say structures, because I have seen there are various new funds that say that they have set up LLP oriented structures, and hence they have solved the taxation oriented issues. Otherwise, if you could cover, starting from basics, that how does tax authorities view this category in terms of taxation? Are you there, Nalin? Can you hear me? Hello. To everyone, just
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you absolutely. So
Right. Sorry, I think either I or you froze for just a
okay,
minute.
no problem, no problem.
So the question was on taxation.
Correct. So I wanted to cover, from basics, that how does SEBI or tax authorities in India view, category three, especially these long short funds, and how does taxation work in your category of fund, and what are these various structures that everybody talks about in terms of taking tax advantages, and is that kind of I would say something to look forward to, or I have also been hearing that along those long short funds or those AIFs which are kind of where they are kind of the genesis is the gift city, there the taxation is more in investors favor. So kindly cover all these aspects, starting from basics.
Right, Kamal. So I'm first going to talk about just things as they stand today for domestic investors in our fund. Uh, First is taxation is paid by the fund, not by the investor. Okay, and that is very clear under the income tax rules. Most funds are set up as a trust, and this is a good assumption to have in every case. Second is that because the fund is paying tax, the fund manager has to manage his portfolio in a tax aware manner. If you're doing frequent transactions, then you will end up paying the marginal tax rate. But if you have a long term core portfolio, the tax rate could be in the vicinity of maybe 10 to 15%. So, this is very important because you give investors post tax, post fee returns. And the third is that the tax rate varies from fund to fund, depending on the nature of income. So if you're doing a lot of F&O trading, or if you have a big bond portfolio where you're earning interest income, tax will be at the marginal rate. But if you have a large component of long-term stock holdings, it can be in the vicinity of 10 to 15%, which is similar to an equity mutual fund. So that's number one. There are some players in the industry, Kamal, who have explored LLPs, but frankly, we don't think that that is a viable solution, because an LLP pays AMT. You will pay an alternative minimum tax every single year, regardless of whether the fund makes money or loses money. And the with an LLP, adding or subtracting investors becomes cumbersome, and frankly, all the partners of an LLP are visible to everybody else. So for a fund that is widely distributed, no distributor wants to invest in a fund where his client names are exposed to another distributor. So it's simply a non-starter. Maybe if you're managing money for few friends and family, it's okay. But any broad-based solution is not going to work with an LLP. Gift City is interesting. There have been players who've set up in Gift City. Regulations are still evolving. And our perspective on that is that for foreign investors, okay, so real foreign investors, not NRIs, but the typical Goras, they will want to see trust and stability in the regulations of Gift City before they commit money. Nobody wants to take any jurisdiction risk. They would rather come through Mauritius. They would rather come through a UCITS structure or Cayman Islands or a Singapore fund, because regulations are a lot more stable there. So Gift City has a lot of promise, Kamal, but it's still very early days. Let us see a few funds being formed. Let us see a few funds being liquidated. Let us see how regulations evolve when there is a change of government. These are important milestones for Gift City to really take off.
Sure, Nalin.
So I've answered many questions.
Oh, no, absolutely. You have absolutely. So, another important question that I have always been trying to understand, and because you pioneered this category in India, and you have been running this fund for so long, I would want to understand from you, what is the type of investor profile who actually, has been investing in this category of fund. So, I will elaborate my question by saying, are corporates wanting seeing this category as interesting in terms of the quantum? I'm not talking about number of investors. I'm saying today your AUM concentration, if I want to understand, is it more coming from corporates, or is it coming from HNI investors? Secondly, within type of investors, is it coming from young investors, or is it coming from mature investors?
Right. Kamal, so the debt risk long short funds have a lot of corporate investors and treasuries, because it is an extension of their fixed income portfolio. We aren't present in that category, so I won't be able to comment on AUM or concentration. But the equity risk long short category, which is where we are present, has mainly HNI investors, family offices, and a good mix of professionals, entrepreneurs, and business families that have invested. And it is broad-based across the top 25 cities in India. We tend to have a slightly older audience, because remember that 1 crore is a lot of money for somebody who's just starting out in life. But of course, we do have young investors who have maybe inherited money and who are very open to some of these newer ideas, maybe because they've studied in the West or they've been exposed through the internet through some of these investment approaches. So I hope that clarifies your question.
Absolutely right. So particularly, talking about your long short fund, which is kind of a long biased long short fund, we understand that it qualifies for blended taxation. So if you could give us some numbers of the construct of your portfolio throughout, say, year 2020-21, in terms of the mix and in terms of the expected taxation, and also if you could cover how have your portfolio fared during COVID period, and after COVID period versus the index.
Right, Kamal. So, we have navigated this pandemic very well. One of the big focus areas for us was protecting capital, especially in early 2020, when there was no vaccine, when there was no clarity on lockdowns or anything of that sort. Subsequently to that, in June, from June of 2020 till almost about maybe 3 months ago, literally one-way rally in markets. We've been in very bullish time. I think we went almost 10 months without seeing a correction in the Nifty. And of course, in a period like that where markets are moving one way, we will underperform. We've delivered good positive returns, but we've still underperformed. That is part of our mandate, by the way. It's our design to do that. But as prices have moved one way, fundamentals have not. I keep stressing that the pandemic has made strong companies stronger, weak companies weaker. And this is the opportunity that we want to capitalize on today. In terms of gross and net exposure, we have not made too many changes to our stock portfolio. Gross exposure has been fairly modest, between 100 to 125, and net exposure has been, if I remember correctly, at a low of maybe 65 to a high of about 95.
Sure. So again, focusing on your style of investing, your fund particularly, as we understand that your fund has long only portfolio as well, and the fortune and the returns of your portfolio do depend, on that portion also. So I would want you to explain more in depth that what is the kind of target universe in terms of that long only portfolio that you have. So are you targeting large cap stocks or mid cap stocks? How do you pick those companies? Are you following a particular style, like growth style of investing or a value style of investing? And how do you take calls in terms of churning the portfolio, taking any exit call, or do you take any cash calls? So I would want to understand, that part also.
Right. So Kamal, we largely invest from the BSE 200, so it is large and mid cap focused, and we're very strict about the quality of business, the quality of promoter, and the valuation that we pay. So I would say that it is quality growth at a reasonable price, and I have a team of 4 that works with me on this fund, and we are very focused on doing bottom up, on the ground research, and we're trying to find businesses which can grow sales at maybe 15% and earnings at about 18 to 20%, but do that consistently for the next 3 to 5 years at the very least. And this is very important, because if we are promising a customer consistent returns, our investments, our holdings themselves have to be in consistent industries. So it all ties into our mandate of what we're trying to achieve. And it's an equal weighted portfolio with 20 of our best ideas. So no fanciness there, just very simple stuff.
Sure. So another element of your long short fund, again, focusing on your long short fund particularly, you have special situations element as well to your long short fund. Right? So I would want to understand, the element of special situations has been added to enhance returns or to reduce risks.
So it does both, Kamal, because these are non-market linked opportunities. Let me give you an example. So as on date, we are very active in the IPO market. We're obviously studying every issue that comes, and we participate in the IPO. We get a much larger allocation than an HNI because we are an institution. And then we typically sell, book profits, and move on listing in the next 7 to 10 days. We've had some bumper listings in the last 3 to 4 months. Companies like Zomato, Nykaa, Clean Science, Nazara Technologies, and others. And I'm excited about the pipeline for the coming months and the coming year. You spoke about pre-IPO, maybe even NSE goes for a listing in the near future. Who knows? But the pipeline is very, very strong.
Right. So,
This is an example, Kamal, of how you're using the AIF structure sensibly to add returns, but without taking on too much incremental risk.
Sure. So, one thing which I would want to understand from you is when you actually started the AIF product, the very first AIF product in India, were you wanting to particularly start a long short fund at that point of time, or you wanted to start an AIF at that point of time?
No, so our idea, so Kamal, even at Goldman Sachs, I was doing long short investing, and I've spent my entire career of 16 years as a specialist in this space. So my idea was to create something that would stand the test of time, but also brought some of those global best practices, global thinking to an Indian investor. So we've created something that I think has a great track record, 18.5% compounded over 7.5 years, and has a happy base of clients, and also I think is managed in a very transparent and sustainable manner. And of course, other people along the way have also come and created equally compelling funds. Our competition is very credible. They do what makes sense to them. We are doing what makes sense to us.
Are you more passionate about long short side of your portfolio, long only side of your portfolio, or special situations part of your portfolio?
I'm passionate about everything, Kamal. You're asking me to choose between 3 of my favorite children. So it's a tough choice, but I would say I'm equally good at all 3.
If there's any, large, I would say, investor who also has a passion regarding equities, and he has been investing into equities for last decades, and he also believes in long short category and wants to set up his own fund, so what would be your advice to that investor?
So I think the most important advice is have clarity on your investment approach. And then one of my big learnings is have a good back office system. There are a lot of custodians or brokers that can help you with that, but don't try and do everything yourself. Focus on what you're good at, which is investing and talking to clients, and let somebody else handle everything else. And I welcome anybody on this call to join the industry. As I said, we're 145 members strong and only growing leaps and bounds every year.
You became entrepreneur at the age of 25, and my understanding is that that point of time you had no backing of clients. It's only because of the very unique product offering at that point of time that you created, which pulled a lot of HNI clients to you. Today, this industry has become very competitive. We have also evolved to a new business model. we have followed a platform-based approach, and this is working for us. How do you see us as a successful entrepreneur, and how do you see this industry, and what are your thoughts, suggestions in this regards?
So I'm still operating like an entrepreneur. Edelweiss has been very kind and it's a very entrepreneurial place, Kamal. So even though I've sold the business on paper, I still come to office every day with the mindset of an entrepreneur. And I think that, people like PMS AIF World are critical in helping to spread
We've lost you again, Nalin.
Kamal.
Yeah. So we lost you actually in between.
So I just said that PMS AIF World is a big part of the industry's growth, because the way you guys are spreading information, knowledge, analytics, conferences, webinars, etc., are giving investors a lot of benefits and insights that they otherwise would not have. And I find that you guys are an unbiased platform, and that is helping to build trust with investors.
Absolutely, and that is exactly what the intent was when we started this, and it has been actually really insightful as always interacting with you, Nalin. From my side, I have asked all the questions that come to my mind. From the style of your fund, and the most important aspect, which is taxation of this fund, which you I think explained very well. I have never heard anyone explaining answers to some of these intricate questions so simply, and I would say that the confidence with which you have been answering all these questions increases all the more trust to hand over a large sum of corpus which is required to invest into the AIF. And all the very best to you for all your future endeavors. We'll be again connecting very soon. We have our third annual event lined up in February 2022, and we will be soon, coming, for the same. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Nalin. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. Thank you for having me. And a very good evening and a good weekend to everybody.